We begin tonight with major news from Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram. It's getting rid of its so-called fact checkers.
Woohoo!
Yes, CEO Mark Zuckerberg has finally admitted what was obvious to everyone else on social media: fact checkers are biased.
And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. The fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
Whoa, Zuckerberg dropping some major truth bombs. Instead, Meta will now introduce community notes. Now, these are like Elon Musk's community notes on X, where users can provide context for posts that they find false or misleading. Now, Lucy, I think this is a great move from Facebook, but honestly, I don't think it should have ever taken Trump's re-election in order for them to make this.
No, and this is a very classic kiss the ring moment, isn't it? They've
Yes.
all recognised that President-elect Trump is coming back into power, and that it's time to recognise that this is no longer the in thing to do. We're not being swayed by a very left and biased government who love to attack the right with their community notes and ideas of misinformation, but we've been seeing it go on for so long now, and I'm so glad that the pendulum has started to swing back the other way, and we're seeing it swing back towards common sense, to more conservative views, and to being open to all of that. I mean, you only have to look back to what happened in the election and all of those, those slaps of misinformation, fact-checking issues pertaining to Trump occurring, them censoring political speech and content on Facebook in particular, to recognise that they couldn't trust these social media platforms. And the bigger question that always kind of aroused my suspicion around this as well was, who are we leaving it to determine what misleading information is? Is it some lefty activist that's working at these organisations that's guiding us on what is right and what is wrong? It was just a circus, so it's nice to see that a bit of common sense is coming back into the frame.
Kel, I thought that satirical site Babylon Bee put it perfectly today. They said the guy who said Facebook wasn't suppressing free speech announces Facebook will stop suppressing free speech. Now, I mean, he isn't exactly a martyr.
Yes.
He was very much involved. I think Meta invested millions of dollars in order to prop up these fact-checking units and to support organisations that controlled speech in America.
Well, to pick up on Lucy's point, we know who was doing it. Because in Australia, for Meta and for the ABC and for lots of other organisations, it was being done by a fact-checking unit at RMIT in Melbourne. So I went to their website and I've made a really interesting discovery. This will sound like I'm making this up, but this is true. The official name of their checking system is crap. No, don't laugh. Don't laugh. This is real. It is spelled C-R-A-A-P, pronounced crap. And those five headings were currency, relevancy, authority, accuracy and purpose. I just think that's wonderful. That's too good to be true. But what those five different headings are, they're five different doors through which they can kick out any message they don't want, and they did, because they kicked out messages that were not leftist messages. Who picked up on the Medicare campaign? Who said, this is rubbish, the coalition's never said this? Whoever picked up on the three-eyed fish and said, this is rubbish, this is not what nuclear does these days? They are not fact-checking anyone on the left. They're only fact-checking people who are slightly to the right of centre and who show a bit of common sense. And this is who's doing it, the RMIT unit. They now have lost their contract. They had a contract with Meta. So the good news is, I suppose, they've lost it, but they've still got their crap.
Well, Sky News really, not to toot our own horn, but I will anyway. We were really instrumental in exposing the bias that existed in these fact-checking units, and most particularly this Australian one at RMIT, Fact Lab. And now they displayed obvious bias during the Voice referendum. Peter Credlin in particular, some of the information she was coming out with, which turned out to be 100% accurate. Things like that the Uluru Statement from the Heart was not one page, and that was really key to helping voters come inform voters in order to make up their minds at the referendum, they were getting slapped with community notes. These items of news, this journalism. And look, Credlin's come out today, just a short time ago. She's given a statement to skynews.com.au, and she said that today's about face from Facebook is a major win for free speech and political expression, at least in the USA. But if Mark Zuckerberg was fair dinkum, he would commit to rolling this out globally. Lucy,
yeah,
I dare say I've got to agree with her that this needs to happen everywhere.
I absolutely agree with her. And if you cast your minds back, there was a report in The Australian in April last year in which about 40 Facebook users who had a pro-nuclear lobby had their content removed because of what they, the Meta team, had deemed as misleading. I mean, if anything's misleading, it's renewable energy and this fantasy idea that that's going to be the thing that powers our entire country. Where's the fact-checking on all of that? It just seems to be things that are operating within the right, within the conservative movement, that they just have this obsession with trying to fact-check and label as misinformation and misleading. So, you know, it's a really... It's an interesting time when you look at what's going on in the US, for example, because that seems to be a big predicator and a test case for what's to come in Australia. We're a little bit behind. We're an isolated island, but
we also don't have the same free speech protections as they do in their
It's in their constitution.
Exactly.
Right?
We don't have that here. We still have defamation laws. Some of the toughest defamation laws in the world here, Kel. I mean, there's still going to be restrictions on what people can say and hate speech. And I'm not a free speech absolutist. I think there should be.
There's always limitations, and there are sensible limitations. But within those sensible limitations, we have to be able to say what we think. The problem is, if you analyse what's going on, there are in fact 4 categories of propositions or truth claims: true, false, disputed, and opinion. And all this fact-checking was based on the idea, no, there's not 4, there's only 2. If it doesn't fit into our category of truth, it's false. They wouldn't acknowledge there are disputed things you can argue about. They wouldn't acknowledge people can express opinions. So all of that got cancelled, all of that got wiped out. That's what they've been doing in Australia. That's what they've been doing around the world. That's the bad news. They've got to be honest and say, yes, there's room for dispute. Things we can... This program is called The Late Debate because it's possible to have debates about things.
But